Good morning, Nick. Thank you very much for taking the time to fit us in for today's TAC Talk. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and how you got involved in TAC?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm Nick Harrison, Group Learning and Development Director for Waterman Group. We've been with TAC for a number of years now, and personally, I started at Waterman back in 2017, and that was really when the new levy process had kicked in, and also there was a move from the old apprenticeship frameworks to the new apprenticeship standards. So one of the things that I was tasked with doing was setting up a new apprenticeship scheme, or kind of developing the existing apprenticeship scheme into something which aligned with the levy, the new standards, etc., and put us in a position where we could take on quite a number of more apprentices as well each year.
So why did you get involved with TAC then? What appealed to you about getting involved with TAC?
So when I joined, we were already TAC members, so there'd already been great feedback about, how TAC worked and the value of being a TAC member. And I quickly started kind of engaging with the TAC members, attending TAC meetings as well. And I realised that it was such an amazing resource to both learn about the evolving apprenticeship landscape, but to also massively learn from the other TAC members. And obviously the TAC members include employers, you've got professional institutions, training providers. It's an incredibly important resource in my mind. And, just found it a great way of engaging and learning, really, and sharing.
What do you think you've brought to TAC? So what have you as a business, and for what you guys do, what have you been able to feed into TAC to share with other members?
So one of the key things really was we've been members of a number of the trailblazer groups who've helped develop apprenticeship standards. And one of the apprenticeship standards that Waterman co-led the development of with WSP was the Environmental Practitioner Degree Apprenticeship. So that is now a successful apprenticeship. We've got a number of environmental practitioners in the Waterman business now as well. Also taken part in some of the sort of focus groups, because TAC works on a number of different areas where typically you could have a few TAC members working on this initiative or that initiative. They're kind of task and finish groups. So I've worked on some of those.
Is there a route there by the apprentices actually carrying out the apprenticeship actually feed into improving the apprenticeship standard for others?
Yeah, I mean, we have regular one-to-one catch-ups with each apprentice, so individual catch-ups, and that's on top of things like the quarterly tripartite review meetings that they have with their line manager or mentor, the university or college. So there's a number of mechanisms for feedback, and any key kind of chunks of feedback we get, we would always feed that back into TAC and share with the other colleagues, and also feedback anything relevant to the training provider themselves as well, which is really important.
What kind of things do you feed back then? And do you stay in your comfort zone, or do you ever bring up some of those maybe a little bit controversial items for discussion?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important with apprenticeships to not stay in your comfort zone, because apprenticeships are quite challenging things, and you need to let people know the reality of those apprenticeships. So we definitely let apprentices know the reality of the situation and the importance of feedback. And we've had a number of situations where we've had to work with training providers in areas where things need to be slightly tweaked or improved, or so I think it's very important to be very open and honest with apprenticeships, because at the end of the day, everybody is still really learning. It's an ever-evolving landscape. We're all learning from each other, so honesty is actually really important.
So would you say that's the hardest thing about being involved in apprenticeships, or is there something harder that in your experience you've had to be involved with?
I think the hardest thing most people would find with apprenticeships who are kind of managing apprenticeships is there's obviously like a high level of admin involved and an attention to detail that's needed. There's lots of boxes that need to be ticked in order for the apprentice to successfully get to where they need to be. So I think it's the amount of work that goes into each kind of apprenticeship situation that's kind of the biggest challenge. So, you know, you need to have attention to detail, you need to sort of be able to communicate well, you need to network with other people to work out the best solutions for a situation. So I think it's kind of the intensity of it and the fact you constantly have to keep on top of where things are within the apprenticeship landscape. So it's an ongoing process, basically.
So if you could change the makeup of TAC, so let's go. You mentioned earlier there's employers. I think you mentioned EPAOs are involved. If you could change the makeup, would you add more providers, apprentices, someone else? Would you have more, less of something that's already there, or do you think TAC has got the right balance at the moment?
I think over the years we've kind of reviewed it and made tweaks as we need to, and I think TAC has worked really well over the years it's been in place, and I think it works well now. I think something that we maybe could do a little bit more of is bring apprentices into the discussion a little bit more. Maybe we could have apprentices sometimes attend a meeting to give their sort of viewpoint on certain things that we're discussing, or give their ideas about things that could help move things along even further. But I think as it works at the moment, you know, you don't want these things to be too big, because if they're too big, nothing ever gets agreed. Things, you know, great ideas happen and they don't always turn into, you know, the outputs that they should do. So I think it works well as it is, but definitely having apprentice feedback at certain points is really helpful. And that happens at things that a lot of TAC members attend, for example, the ICE Apprenticeship Conference. So, you know, it works in many ways, getting that feedback.
Were you an apprentice, or how did you get involved?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I've always been in learning and development. So learning and development's kind of been my career. And obviously, you know, a lot of learning and development functions have apprenticeships as part of that function. And at Waterman, we also have apprentice recruitment within the learning and development team. Now, I know not all companies do it that way, but we feel because, you know, it's a very much a heavily based learning role, it's important to be involved in the recruitment process as well. So yeah, so I just basically sort of got to know about apprenticeships through my role as sort of learning and development managers over the years, learning and development director, that type of thing, really.
So I've bumped into you at many different events, so I know you're passionate about apprenticeships. Why?
I'm glad it's come across, and likewise, Colin.
Why? But why? What is it that has that spark in you? If you're not an ex-apprentice, why do you care?
I mean, when you see how quickly apprentices who are really engaged with what they do move on, I mean, you can see what an amazing, you know, sorry, when you see how an engaged apprentice can really rapidly learn and sort of, you know, pick up things that they'd never even heard of before they started the apprenticeship, and just get completely immersed in the world of learning, doing the work itself, being involved in cutting edge work. It's an incredible opportunity to give somebody. And a fully engaged apprentice they really work hard, they achieve amazing things. And it's also something where it's an opportunity for everyone. There may be people out there who would like to go to university full time, but for whatever reason they can't afford to go down that route. It's a very inclusive opportunity. And with that work-learning balance, really they're learning all the time. Even if they're not at college or uni, they're going to be learning in the workplace. It's just, to me, makes perfect sense. I've been on board with it from day one.
Do you find that it does increase the diversity in your business then? Because are you having people that would come to you as apprentices that you wouldn't usually have got through a normal graduate route or other routes?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think that there's because it's open to everybody. Those that can't go to university, haven't got that opportunity. It's obviously going to create a much more diverse, broader pool of people, because you know the opportunities there for so many. But yeah, we definitely have seen things shift in terms of recruiting more female engineers, for example. We've seen that happen sort of a number of times in recent years. So yeah, and it's definitely something which is massively positive for equality, diversity, and inclusion. Yeah, to us it's been a bit of a no-brainer really, getting involved in apprenticeships.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time, Nick. I really appreciate that. And thank you for your help with this. Cheers, Nick. Bye.
Yeah, very much, Colin.